This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you an exclusive interview with Union Minister HARDEEP Singh Puri on achievements of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and his vision for the future. Interviewer is AIR correspondent Ashutosh Shukla.
Good evening and welcome listeners. More than half of global population and more than a third of Indian population is now living in cities. Cities provide benefits of economies of scale. They are able to efficiently deliver infrastructure and services to their residents. Cities attract talented and skilled labor in search of better economic prospects. With increasing share of manufacturing and services sector in the economy, our country has rapidly urbanized in recent decades and the trend is expected to continue. This has created huge demand for jobs, affordable housing and well-connected transport systems and basic services in our cities. Rapid and unplanned urbanization has also created issues like increasing slums, low standard of living and poor quality of environment. Today on All India Radio News, we have with us Minister of Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri HARDEEP Singh Puri, to discuss issues related to cities and his vision for urban development. Sir, welcome to All India Radio News.
Thank you very much.
Works taken by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs significantly affect the quality of life in urban areas. What are the key achievements of the ministry?
I should perhaps start by focusing on one or two of the comments that you made about the overall trend. You used the word rapid urbanization. Till a few years ago, our friends in the West, in fact, termed us as reluctant urbanizers. Because if you look at the percentage of the population which lives in the urban space, compared to some others, the percentage was less. But I think they got their figures slightly mistaken, but our base is very high. But for the sake of a context, let me remind you that when we became an independent country in 1947, 17% of our population lived in urban spaces. But if you take 17% out of a population of 350 million, you have the figure. The population of Delhi in 1947 was 8 lakhs. Then when my ancestors and other refugees came in from West Pakistan, our population suddenly in Delhi went up to 22 lakhs. When we do the census this year, what do you think Delhi's population will be? It will be in excess of 2 crores. I'm sticking my neck out, maybe slightly less or probably more. The last census we had was 2011. In 2011, the urban population of the country must have been somewhere in the vicinity of 357 million or so. That was the total population in 1947. Now 350, 360 million people lived in urban spaces. But we don't see what happened in 2011. What is going to be the urban population in 2030 when the United Nations finishes work on the Sustainable Development Goals and India hopefully would have moved from a $2.89 trillion economy pre-COVID to a $10 trillion economy by 2030. That's our aim. We would have 600 million people living in urban spaces. Your question to me is a specific one. What are our achievements? And I can tell you one of the most significant, noteworthy achievements of the Modi government have been in the urban space. Let me give you one statistic. In the 10 years of the UPA government, led by the Congress, the total amount of expenditure incurred on the programmatic interventions of the central government in 10 years was 1,57,000 crores. In the 7 years of the Modi government, I should actually say 6, because the government was elected in May 2014, we entered the schemes in June 2015. From June 2015 to now 6 years, the total expenditure is more than 6 times. It is close to 11 lakh crores. 1,57,000 crores in 10 years and 11 lakh crores in 6 years. I'll give you 2 or 3 small pointers and then we can proceed. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, the urban spread. The target demand assessment was initially 1 crore. We revised the demand assessment. Today it has been placed at 1 crore 11 lakh. Let me tell you, we've already saturated the demand. Today we have sanctioned more than 1 crore 12 lakh units. 50 lakh beneficiaries have already moved into their Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. And about 83 are at an advanced stage of construction, and we expect all of this to be completed well in time by the time the scheme is due to be finished, which is by March next year. Let me also come to Smart City Mission. Again, maybe we have not spent as much time in propagating what has happened. 100 cities were selected based on a competition in 3 models. An area-based development, that is within a city you define a particular area which you will convert into a smart city, retrofitting and greenfield. Today, out of the 100 smart cities which were chosen between January of 2016 and June of 2018, work has really proceeded. Out of the 100 integrated command and control centers, 76 are already ready, and we are hoping to get the remaining ones ready by December this year. During the COVID pandemic, the smart city integrated command and control centers work like war rooms. What does a smart city do? It uses technology in a model to produce inclusive and sustainable development, to better the lives of citizens, to produce security for women, to produce smart traffic management. So if you look at the progress, total value of the smart city mission is about 205,000 crores. The central government's contribution is 48,000 crores, which means they will give 100 crores per smart city every year for 5 years. I think total number of projects tendered is about 80%. Total number of projects completed is about 25%, but the rate at which the tendering and work orders issued is concerned, it is proceeding. Every smart city will be completed out of the 100 within 5 years of its inception or start. I could go into Amrut, I could go into the other schemes, but I think I've given you a reasonable idea of what we are doing. These are the original programmatic intervention. During COVID, we learnt a few lessons. The lesson was that at the end of the day, you may own a house, but people come into a city center looking for work. So we had a new scheme for migrant workers, affordable housing rental complexes. Within a year or so, we have already got the scheme going. You talked about slums. Typically, yes, I'd rather call them informal settlements. These grow up or these come into being because people who constitute the workforce in any city come into the city looking for work. And then these informal settlements or slums go up. One of the 4 verticals under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is in situ slum rehabilitation. I'm very happy to tell you that vertical is also making progress. In Delhi, elsewhere, in Bangalore, I was part of the inauguration of a huge complex which used to be an informal settlement. We have the central government offices there. In Delhi, we've got Katputli colony. I'm a little disappointed because of COVID, some of these projects have slowed down, but I think hopefully the behavior of the virus notwithstanding and the third wave not creating a complication, we will get these east of Kailash, Katputli colonies all done very soon.
The real estate regulatory authorities, they were seen as game changers in the real estate sector and hailed for giving retail home buyers a level playing field. How did it benefit the retail market?
See, 2 things. One is that in and of itself, I think it's a matter of great shame that for 70 years, a sector like real estate, which is a significant segment of the economy for economic activity, which is one of the largest employers, which is one of the largest contributors to the nation's GDP, didn't have a regulator. So the previous government started talking about RERA many, many years ago, but it is this government of Mr. Modi which fought battles from within, from outside, and we finally brought RERA in. And as was perhaps only to be expected, the minute RERA was enacted, there was a legal challenge mounted to it. Honorable Supreme Court directed those challenges to go to the Mumbai High Court. We met those challenges. RERA has been implemented. How does it benefit the home buyer? It's a game changer. Earlier, what an unscrupulous buyer would do is he would take your money, his money, okay, and buy more land with it. Your projects were never completed. Now RERA imposes discipline and the home buyer has got a set of enforceable rights. When a new project is started, 70% of the money has to be put into an escrow account, and that escrow account can only be used for that building. Well, one state chose not to follow the RERA model. That state, I can name it, West Bengal, ended up enacting its own regulation. This was challenged, and I'm delighted that the Supreme Court has struck it down. Now the West Bengal also is following RERA. So RERA is nationwide now.
Swachh Bharat mission is often lauded as a successful scheme of the government. Around 99% of urban local bodies have declared themselves ODF. What efforts are being made to ensure that these gains are consolidated?
Well, I would go a step further. The fact that large percentage of urban local bodies have declared themselves as ODF is creditable. But please remember, this ODF certification is not a self-certification. ODF certification has to be based on third-party certification. Now, it's not enough to be declared ODF. My friend, you have to ensure that you remain ODF. So that third-party certification become very important. But Swachh Bharat had 2 primary objectives. One, to reach ODF status, but second one, to bring in that behavioral change. Those are the primary objectives. One is a physical target. You have to build a certain number of toilets. I think, if I remember correctly, something like 65 lakh community and public toilets. We built much more than that. But there's another one. We also needed 100% solid scientific waste management. You know, a large country, large economic activity, people dump their waste outside and then it clogs the drains, etc. Now, when we started SBM, You know, what did Prime Minister say from the ramparts of the Red Fort on 15th August 2014? That it is my dream that by the time we celebrate the 150th birth anniversary of the Mahatma, India will be open defecation free. But we had to go stop further. What is that? We need to increase our STP coverage. It was 14% when we started. SBM, when it finishes, will have about 70-75%, but we have to take it to 100%. Then certain areas like fecal sludge management, certain areas like star grading of cities based on cleanliness indices. We have a Swachhta Sarvekshan. Work in progress, and I was very happy that the Honorable Finance Minister, in her budget speech earlier this year, was already contemplating a SBM2, where we will carry some of these targets further.
The Amrut scheme, it was launched to improve infrastructure and basic services in urban areas, and it now covers 60% of the urban population. Are there any plans to extend it to all cities?
Well, let me put it this way, that we had to make a beginning. Amrut is about providing clean drinking water. Amrut is about septage and sewage. Amrut is about stormwater drainage. Amrut is about greenery, urban mobility, some transport. But you're right, it was not a 100% coverage scheme. 500 cities which have a population of over 100,000 were selected. Those 100,000 population, many were less, but it's that we had only a scheme for 500, that's what we had money for. But I'm very happy to tell you that Amrut is only 60%. When I became a newly appointed minister, my colleagues in state governments, state ministers who asked me, when are you doing Amrit 2? I think the time has come now for us to look at the contours of a follow-up scheme. And I think provision for that has already been made in the budget by the Honorable Finance Minister.
Good urban mobility with last mile connectivity is an important factor affecting quality of life in urban areas. Are there any projects being implemented to improve urban
Well, we have not any projects. We have some massive projects. This morning, the Chief Minister of Delhi and I inaugurated a stretch of, not a very large stretch, but a stretch on the metro. Today, if memory serves me right, we have something like 718 kilometers of metro operational in India. And we have another 1,076 kilometers in the pipeline. I'll make an assessment, whether it's metro or metro light or metro neo, in the coming 5 years, 10 years to multiply many times. Urban mobility is at the heart of what urban rejuvenation is all about. People come looking for work to the center of the city where people live. They tend to settle down there. As economic activity increases, you need to build affordable housing near the place of work further. How do you get people around? Now clearly, the idea is to move people around, not to move cars around. So all big cities which have a success story, they still have urban congestion problems. Like Tokyo, I was a young diplomat when I was posted there, and traffic jams were things that you had to really worry about. Sometimes were a nightmare. Delhi also has, but we are slowly decongesting. Now you have within Delhi and the National Capital Region, I would say something like 360 kilometers of metro already operational. I think in 2002, Vajpayee ji started with a single stretch, 50 kilometers or so, even maybe not that. See where we have come from 2002 to 2021. We have 718 kilometers already operational and another 1,076 kilometers in the pipeline.
Sustainable living is an international buzzword these days. Is there any focus on making Indian cities sustainable?
If you build green housing, when you go into global technology challenge where we are bringing in the best technologies, when you are getting a metro, all this is movement towards sustainability. See, sustainability has many indicators. We have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but Goal 11, which is inclusive cities, is what this is all about. Similarly, I think increasing percentage of the construction we do will be based on new technologies. We have this Lighthouse Challenge where we are in 6 cities building affordable housing under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana using the latest cutting-edge technologies available anywhere in the world. And those will have a lighthouse effect for others. So I think all of this adds up to a massive urban rejuvenation which is anchored in green technology.
So thank you for joining us on All India Radio News and telling our listeners about your vision for urban development.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to an exclusive interview with Union Minister HARDEEP Singh Puri on achievements of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and his vision for the future. Interviewer was AIR correspondent Ashutosh Shukla. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.